All praises to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And peace to everyone joining us on this program. This is the Fountain of Israel's Bible Studies program. And as always, it is my honor and pleasure to stand before you on the Lord's Sabbath day. Now, without any further ado, I'm going to jump right into the title of it, and that is called The Power of the Tongue. The Power of the Tongue. We're going to deal with the things that we say, the words that are coming out of our mouths, the vows, the swearing, all those type of things, and the power and the weight that it carries, and how the Lord, or how the Bible looks at that, the things that we have to say, good or evil. So with that, you know, we're going to start in Proverbs 18. We're going to start in Proverbs 18 because in fact, we do have a lot of ground to cover, and I want you guys to take notes and follow along. So we're going to start in Proverbs 18, and I want to begin at verse 4. Proverbs 18 and 4. And I'll be reading this myself because I really want us to take our time with this. Okay, Proverbs 18 and 4 says this: the words of a man's mouth are as deep waters, and the wellspring of wisdom as a flowing brook. Verse 5. It is not good to accept the person of the wicked, to overthrow the righteous in judgment. A fool's lip enter into contention, and his mouth calleth for strokes. Okay, sometimes people, you know, they will speak out of turn. I mean, if you've ever been looking at a movie or something, and the situation could have been avoided if the person that you were looking at on the screen or in the movie would just close their mouth. Okay, so it says, you know, a fool's lips enter into contention, and his mouth calleth for strokes. I mean, you know, he's going to get hit. Okay, because some people open their mouth, or as the saying goes, you know, their mouth write a check that their body can't cash. Okay, verse 7, a fool's mouth is his destruction, and his lips are the snare of his soul. Okay, so some of the things that you say can get you caught up. Some of the things that we say get us in trouble. Okay, so verse 8, the words of a talebearer are as wounds, and they go down into the innermost parts of the belly. Now, this is a gossiper, okay, a rumor, a person who loves to spread rumors and gossip and stir up contention. And, you know, you see this a lot, like when you look at some of these reality shows, and word or something negative get back to one of the other people on a reality show, and then they go back to confront this and that, contention and strife. That's what some people want. That's what some people live for. That's all they do. Okay, but they will be caught in a snare. I'm going to drop down to verse 20, if you will. Verse 20. A man's belly shall be satisfied with the fruit of his mouth, and with the increase of his lips shall he be filled. Okay, this kind of, you know, this can go also, you know, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So as a man's belly shall be satisfied with the fruit of his lips. Some of the things that he say. Okay, a lot of us, we are very, very ambitious, and we decide, hey, you know, I want to start a business, I want to provide for my family, things like that. Then when they really get down to brass tacks, and they pull a business plan and look at it, do profit and loss and break-even analysis and things like that, and they start to really break down what's it going to take to really get this business going, then yeah, their belly, they will be satisfied. A man's belly shall be satisfied with the fruit of his lips. You know, when you declare it and then you just go do it. I'm not talking about New Year's resolution or something. I'm talking about someone really going to put boots on the ground where the rubber really meets the road. Say what they are declaring. Okay, a man's belly shall be satisfied with the fruit of his mouth, and with the increase of his lips shall he be filled. Okay, so the very next verse really says it all. So it can be negative, it can be positive. Okay, it can be life, it can be death. So let's look at verse 21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and that's Proverbs 18 verse 21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. It's about our words. It's about what we are talking about and meditating all day long. Are you meditating on something or speaking words of life or words of death? Are you speaking life into your situation? And no, I'm not trying to go into some name it, claim it doctrine. You know, we don't support this name it, claim it doctrine. However, you can speak cursings over your life, or you can speak blessings over your life We're just going with what the Bible says. It can be life or it can be death. Preach and teach and say, hey, you know what? My life is never going to amount to anything. I'm a loser. I'm going into the pit. I know one day I'm just going to end up in jail. You can speak all that because subconsciously we're always trying to make ourselves right. We're going to live into whatever it is that we are programming ourselves. You're going to subconsciously, because guess what? We never want to be wrong. So we're going to make ourselves right. Hey, I'm going to lose. I'm not going to get it. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. We subconsciously kind of move in that direction because we move in the direction of our dominant thought. So what are you thinking about all day? Let's go to Matthew chapter 12. Let's go to the book of Matthew chapter 12. Okay. And when we get to the book of Matthew chapter 12, let's look at verse 34. Matthew chapter 12 and verse 34. It says, O generation of vipers, how can ye, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. A good man out of the good treasure of his heart bringeth forth good things, and an evil man out of the evil treasure bringeth forth evil things. If we look at so what's inside you comes out, basically. You squeeze an orange, hard enough, what comes out? Orange juice. What's within us comes out of us. So if you have good things in you, a good treasure, that is what's going to come out. When the pressure is on, what comes out? Do you crumble? Or do you try to rise to the occasion? Do you meet the challenge? Or do you fall apart? What do you say? What do you speak into these situations? And ultimately, what do you do? So a good man out of the good treasure of the heart bringeth forth good things, and an evil man out of the evil treasure bringeth forth evil things. But I say unto you, that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment. Now that, brothers and sisters, is a sobering thought. Okay? That right there is a sobering thought. Every idle word. So we should be watching our mouth. Watch what we say. Especially if life and death are in the power of the tongue. Then we certainly should be careful about what we say, whom we say it to, what we say to others, what do we say to ourselves? Because it begins to shape people. It begins to shape us. And ultimately, it begins to shape our situation. Verse 37, for by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned. Sounds similar to what I said earlier. You know, if you thought, oh, you know what, I'm going to amount to anything, I'm going to end up in jail or in the grave, then you'll be justified or condemned by those words. And this is right from the Messiah. So that's what it comes down to. And words are free. So all we have to do is work on that programming that we got going on here. You know, focus on higher things. You know, other places in the Bible it says, you know, think on these things, you know, all that's good, all that's pure, you know, righteous, holy. Because we got to get that in us. And when we get this word abundantly in us, then when the pressure's on, it'll come out of us. Let's go back to Proverbs. We're going to be in and out of Proverbs a lot, by the way. Let's go back to Proverbs. This time, let's go to chapter 27 in the book of Proverbs. 27. Let's read the first two scriptures. Proverbs 27, verse 1. Boast not thyself of tomorrow, for thou knowest not what a day may bring forth. Okay, I'll read that again. Boast not thyself of tomorrow, for thou knowest not what a day may bring forth. You know the old saying, you know, tomorrow's not promised to you. You don't know. So don't boast, oh, I'm going to do this tomorrow. You know, boasting about it. You hope, you just say, oh, you know, if the Lord will, that sort of thing. Okay, so don't boast. Don't hang your hat on tomorrow because you may not make it till tomorrow. In other words, verse 2, let another man praise thee and not thy own mouth, a stranger and not thy own lips. Okay, when you praise, you're saying you're so great, this and that. No, it's okay if someone else says that. It's okay if someone else says that, but if you're just arrogant and haughty and high-minded and think too much of yourself, again, that's your words out of your own mouth. Be humble. If someone else say, hey, this guy, he's great, he's a great singer, he's a great dancer, he's a great teacher, he's a great whatever, it's okay if other people praise you. That's fine. But stay humble when it comes to praising yourself. Okay, so we're going to go to James. Let's go to the New Testament. James. Book of James. Moving around a little bit. But anyway, that was Proverbs 27, 1 and 2. Now we are in James chapter 4. James chapter 4. And verse. Move around a little bit here. 13. James chapter 4, verse 13. And then we'll move around a little bit. 13 says this. Go to now, ye that say, today or tomorrow we will go in such a city and continue there a year and buy and sell and get gain. Whereas you know not what shall be on tomorrow. Isn't that what it just said over in Proverbs? You don't know. Okay. He says, you know not what shall be on tomorrow, for what is your life? It is even a vapor that appeareth for a little time and then vanisheth away. Okay. Vanisheth away. For that ye ought to say, if the Lord will, we shall live and do this or that. But now ye rejoice in your boast. Such rejoicing is evil. Therefore, to him that knoweth to do good and do it not, to him it is a sin. That he says. So again, in 14 he said, whereas you know not what shall be on tomorrow, for what is your life? It is even a vapor that appeareth for a little time and then vanisheth away. For that ye ought to say, if the Lord will, we shall live and do this or that. So we don't, because like I said earlier, tomorrow is not promised to us. We don't know for sure. Okay, we need to always have that in the back of our mind. Okay, I'm not saying, oh well, you know, I got to go pay a bill tomorrow, I got to run an errand tomorrow, something like that. We're just saying, you know, in a lofty manner, I'm gonna do this, or you want to push everything off until tomorrow. You can't push everything off until tomorrow. You don't know if you will be here tomorrow. Our life is just a vapor, as the scripture says. Okay, I'm going to back up to verse 11. Speak not evil one of another, brethren. He that speaketh evil of his brother and judges his brother, speaketh evil of the law and judges the law. But if thou judges the law, thou art not a doer of the law, but a judge. Okay, so you can't run around pointing to finger all the time. Okay, you can't do that. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what battles someone else is facing. Okay, you get a lot of people. We pass judgment. We're looking around. I get people constantly on the videos wondering, oh, you keep the law, statutes, and commandments? You growing a beard? You eat pork? Always checking and checking and checking. I always have to ask. I have to check. Okay, what? Okay, why are you asking what's going on? I mean, that's what I teach. So what are you talking about? Okay, and they assume I can grow this big Santa Claus beard or something, which I can't. But they assume I can. Well, brother, do you? Okay, which I don't understand. But as it says, speak not evil one another. Oh, this brother out of order, that brother. Don't be too quick to judge. And don't get me wrong, I'm not doing the Christian job, the Christian doctrine of judge not lest you be judged. We know we are to judge one another. We know that in some aspects. I'm saying don't be quick to judge. That's what I'm saying. I'm being very, very clear. Don't be quick to judge. You can make a determination, like if someone, you're judging someone and they're doing something on the Sabbath or whatever. You don't know their knowledge of keeping the Sabbath or not. You don't know where they are. You don't know. You don't know what's going on in their life. Now, if someone's just blatantly forsaking the law and don't care what anyone has to say, okay, yeah, then you know, okay, yeah, you're breaking the commandments. Whole story. Don't be too quick to judge. You need to be busy. You keeping the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. You need to be on that, lest ye be a castaway. You and my first concern is me doing my very best to keep God's commandments. But again, look at what 11 says. It says, speak not evil one of another, brethren. He that speaketh evil of his brother has judged his brother, speaking evil of the law and judges the law. But if thou judge the law, thou art not a doer of the law, but a judge. Shouldn't do that. There is one lawgiver who is able to save and to destroy. Who art thou that judges another? Okay, you're not. Well, I'm not the ultimate lawgiver. Let me be the first to say that. Let me be the first to put that out on record. I'm not. Okay, so running around judging people too quickly is not a good idea. And again, it begins with speaking. Speak not evil one of another. Okay, so we got to keep that in mind. Now, let's go to chapter 5 in James. Go to chapter 5. Chapter 5. Okay, we're talking about the power of the tongue, life and death, vows, swearing. We're talking about all that has to do with the tongue. James chapter 5 and verse 12, it says this, but above all things, my brethren, swear not, neither by heaven, neither by the earth, neither by any other oath, but let your yea be yea and your nay be nay, lest ye fall into condemnation, because your words can entrap you. These vows, these oaths, these promises, oh, I swear to God, oh, I swear on my mother's grave, oh, I swear. No, can't do that, or shouldn't do that. James 5:12, again, but above all things, my brethren, swear not, neither by heaven, neither by the earth, neither by any other oath, but let your yea be yea and your nay be nay, lest ye fall into condemnation. Meaning, because you gave your word, or you promised, or you oath, or you made a vow and you broke it. Now you're in condemnation because you went back on your word. So we need not be so quick to swear by this and swear by that and pledge this and pledge that. Don't be so quick to do that. Because one of the they said in the last days is going to be like truce breakers and covenant breakers. You give your word, you broke it. You're a covenant breaker. Ecclesiastes. And when we get to the book of Ecclesiastes, let's go to chapter 5. Chapter 5. Let's look at what else the Bible has to say about oaths and swearing and the power of the tongue. Ecclesiastes chapter 5 and verse 1 says, keep thy foot when thou goest to the house of God, and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools, which is running their mouth. For they consider not that they do evil. Okay, that's verse 1. Keep thy foot when thou goest to the house of God, and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools. For they consider not that they do evil. Be not rash with thy mouth. Look at what it says next. Be not rash with thy mouth, and let not thy heart be hasty to utter anything. For God is in heaven, and thou upon earth. Therefore, let thy words be few. Does that sound advice right there? Don't promise too much. You do too much, you're promising too much, you overextending yourself, and you just spitting out words willy-nilly. Therefore, let thy words be few. For a dream coming through the multitude of business, and a fool's voice is known by the multitude of words. How do we identify a fool? Somebody who talks a whole lot. Someone who always has something to say. Someone's always running off at the mouth. I get a lot of that. Just look at the comments. Look at go through the channel. Look at a few lessons. I mean, yes, we got a lot of supporters, you know, but also look at the naysayers on there. And when you click on their channel, there's nothing there. But they're there to be critical about what you're teaching and what you're doing. They got something to say. No, it doesn't upset me to make me feel some way. I expect it. But they know not what they're doing. They just see the lesson. Oh, I don't like this, and brother, you got this wrong, and and all that other stuff. It's just coming straight to an attack. but they always have something to say. Verse 4. When thou vowest a vow unto God, defer not to pay it. You, don't hesitate. You make a vow to God, don't delay in paying it. Do what you say. Oh, I swear to God, what you shouldn't say anyway. But if you do make a promise to God, keep it. Or don't make a promise at all. When thou vowest a vow unto God, defer not to pay it, for he has no pleasure in fools. Pay that which thou hast vowed. Pay what you said you were going to pay. Do what you say you are going to do. So those who drink, they get drunk, they drink a little bit too much. Then the next morning they're praying to the porcelain god. And what are the words that they utter out of their mouth as this throbbing going through their brain? Oh, I'll never drink again. Oh God, if you just stop, oh, and they're just retching more and more and more. Oh, I'll never drink again if I survive this or whatever. Oh God, help me. You're making promises, you're making vows. Don't make promises you can't keep. Especially if you know when you feel better, you probably are going to drink again. See, that's out of the mouth of fools. You're making a foolish promise. You're making a foolish oath. Vow, because you just spit it out there like that. When thou vowest a vow unto God, defer not to pay it, for he has no pleasure in fools. Pay that which thou hast vowed. Better it is that thou shouldest not vow, so don't say that. Just, God, heal me, make me feel better, something like that. But I promise I won't. No. Thou shouldest not vow, then thou shouldest vow and not pay. Suffer not thy mouth to cause thy flesh to sin before the angel that it was an error. Wherefore should God be angry at thy voice and destroy the works of thy hand? Suffer not thy mouth to cause thy flesh to sin. Neither say thou before the angel that it was an error. Oh, my bad. I didn't really mean it. Why are you saying it? Wherefore should God be angry at thy voice and destroy the works of thy hand? Breaking promises. How many times? If you are the infinite God, the most high God, the all-powerful, the ancient of days, we don't even have to go that far. We can just go, to the sun. If you're either one of them, how many broken promises do you think you hear by the minute? By the minute. I don't have to say by the day, by the minute. How many broken promises over and over and over? People breaking promises and saying something. Verse 7. For in the multitude of dreams and the many words, there are also divers vanities, but fear thou God. Fear thy God. Just don't make promises you can't keep. Don't make vows you can't keep. You have an old saying, word is bond. You mean what you say. It used to be your word in a handshake. We don't live in that society today, but it used to be your word in a handshake. And people were appalled if you broke it. It's like, wait a minute, you gave me your word. That was at a time when it meant something. But to God, it still means something. We're going to have to give account of every idle word spoken out of our mouth, right? So to him, it still means something. To you, it may not mean nothing. To the world, it may not mean anything. But to him, it still does. It's because we don't fear God. We just don't think about it. We just don't. We got to watch what we say. You got to watch what you say. Sometimes we say things or do things to try to gain advantage. And it could backfire on you. Watch what you say, because it could indeed backfire on you. Let me give you an example. Go to 2 Samuel. I'll give you an example. 2 Samuel chapter 1. Okay, let's go. 2 Samuel. All right, you follow along with me. 2 Samuel chapter 1. I'm going to begin in verse 1. 2 Samuel chapter 1, verse 1. Now it came to pass after the death of Saul, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites, and David had abode 2 days in Ziklag. It came even to pass on the third day that, behold, a man came out of the camp from Saul with his clothes rent and earth upon his head. And so it was, when he came to David, that he fell to the earth and did obeisance. So he paid his respect. He bowed down to, David. He paid his respect. Let's see what happened. And David said unto him, from whence comest thou? Where'd you come from? From whence comest thou? And he said unto him, out of the camp of Israel am I escaped. And David said unto him, how went the matter? Like, what happened? I pray thee, tell me. And he answered, that the people are fled from the battle, and many of the people also are fallen and dead, and Saul and Jonathan his son. And David said unto the young man that told him, how knowest thou that Saul and Jonathan his son be dead? Him said, as I happened by chance upon Mount Gilboa, behold, Saul leaned upon his spear, and lo, the chariots and horsemen followed hard after him. He saw me and called unto me, and I answered, here I am. And he said unto me, who art thou? And I answered him, I am an Amalekite. And he said unto me again, stand, and I pray thee, upon me, and slay me, for the anguish is come upon me, because my life is yet whole in me. Okay? So I stood upon him and slew him, because I was sure that he could not live after that he was fallen. And I took the crown that was upon his head, and the bracelet that was on his arm, and have brought them hither unto my Lord. See, I got all this. I got this crown, got this spear, I got all that to bring it to you. My Lord. Well, he wasn't king yet, but that's what he did now. If you read the story before, you know that is not what happened. Saul and Jonathan killed themselves. Okay? But verse 11, then David took hold on his clothes and rent them, because he was really upset. And likewise all the men that were with him, because that was their king. 12, and they mourned and wept and fasted until even, for Saul and for Jonathan his son, and for the people of the Lord, and for the house of Israel, because they were fallen by the sword. That was, after all, that was their first king. 13, and David said unto the young man that told him, whence art thou? And he answered, I am the son of a stranger, an Amalekite. And David said unto him, how wast thou not afraid to stretch forth thy hand to destroy the Lord's anointed? And David called one of the young men and said, go near and fall upon him. And he smote him that he died. And David said unto him, thy blood be upon thy head, for thy mouth has testified against thee, saying, I have slain the Lord's anointed. He said his mouth did that, right? Because he thought he was going to have great gain and get favor from David. Hey, I killed this guy. Now, the guy lied because he didn't kill Saul. But his mouth testified against him. He had to lie because he thought, hey, he's going to be happy I took care of this Saul problem for David. Now David can be the king and comfort, no big deal. But we see that's not the reaction that David had. He was upset. This was the Lord's anointed. It was Israel's first king. Even though Saul was trying to kill him, didn't matter. David had multiple opportunities to kill Saul. And he didn't. Word is in trouble. Earlier that your words or condemn you. We just read an example of the word, your own words condemn you. In Acts 5. Condemn you. Let's go to Acts 5. Agree. Whatever you need to make a practice of doing it and getting it done. Yes, we will fall short, but again, I said make a practice of it. You say it the best you can, or at least, at the very least, don't promise if you cannot deliver. Acts 5, let's start in verse 11. You guys read this story before, but we're going to take a look at it again. Again, not keeping your word. By your word. Okay? Acts 5 and 1. But a certain man named Ananias with Sapphira, his wife, sold a possession and kept back part of the price, his wife also being privy to it, and brought a certain part and laid it at the apostles' feet. Obviously, they agreed on a certain amount, but they didn't stick to it. Verse 3, but Peter said, Ananias, why has Satan filled thy heart to lie to the Holy Ghost and to keep back part of the price of the land? Okay, that's what that possession was, part of the land. While it remains, was it not thy own? And after it was sold, was it not in thy own power? Meaning you agreed to sell the land and to give so much of the proceeds. You agreed. Okay, now he's saying, while it was yours, was it not yours? You could have said any amount. You didn't have to say, I'm going to give 90% or I'm going to give 60% or we're going to do a 50-50. You could do whatever. It was up to you what you wanted to give. You said it was going to give so much and you didn't do it. Was it in thy own power? Why hast thou conceived this thing in thy heart? Thou has not lied unto men, but unto God. That was verse 4, middle of verse 4. Verse 5. And Ananias, hearing these words, fell down and gave up the ghost. And great fear came on all them that heard these things. Verse 6. And the young men arose, wound him up, and carried him out, and buried him. And it was about the space of 3 hours after, when his wife, not knowing what was done, came in. And Peter answered unto her, tell me whether ye sold the land for so much. And she said, yes, for so much. Then Peter said unto her, how is it that ye have agreed together to tempt the Spirit of the Lord? Behold, the feet of them which have buried thy husband are at the door, and shall carry thee out. Then she fell down straightway at his feet and yielded up the ghost. And the young men came in and found her dead, buried her by her husband. Pretty serious. And great fear came upon all the church and upon as many as heard these things. By their words, they made an agreement and they did not stick to it. I pray that all of us are getting the gravity of this situation, getting the gravity of it, just so we're not using our words willy-nilly. So when we're dealing with each other, when we're dealing with fellow believers, don't expect a lot of unbelievers. But we should have a higher standard, a biblical standard for believers. We should feel pretty good when a fellow believer gives his word or her word. Because we're supposed to carry a higher standard. It doesn't mean, oh, we're going to promise this, we're going to promise that, all willy-nilly. No, on the contrary, we're not going to promise unless we can be sure that we're going to deliver on the promise. Let's go over to Proverbs 19. Proverbs 19. Okay, Proverbs chapter 19, I am going to read verse 5. Okay, Proverbs 19 and 5. A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall not escape. That pretty much explains itself. I shall not bear false witness. In other words, we should not lie. Should make a habit of lying. Fool is known by the multitude of his words. So how about we say little? Verse 10. The light is not seemly for a fool, much less for a servant that have rule over princes. Verse 9. A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall perish. What is that when you can contrast that to verse 5? Verse 5, a false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall not escape. And you look at verse 9, a false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall perish. Same thing. Interesting. Same thing. We need to watch the words. We need to watch the words. We're still in Proverbs, but just go to chapter 20. Go to the next chapter. Chapter 20 and verse 19. Let's take a look at this. He that goeth about as a talebearer revealeth secrets. Therefore, meddle not with him that flattereth with his lips. Okay, I've had this in my life. I had people in my life or acquaintances where they, they're pretty cool to be around and friendly enough. Good people to be around as far as, entertainment, fun, but you can't trust them. Like this, and I can tell you from experience. If you're around someone who spreads rumors and it's 100% true. If you're around someone who spreads rumors, who gossips to you, gossip to you about others, they will gossip to others about you. They are tale bearers. That's what they do. That's how they function. Sometimes you're on the receiving end of the gossip and the rumors and the drama and all of that. And sometimes they're in your ear. Sometimes they're in somebody else's ear. But I know it from personal experience. Whether it be male or female, it does not matter. Gossip, rumors, drama, because that's how their life functions. And no one's immune to it. Still in Proverbs. I said we're going to be in here a lot. So go to chapter 16 in Proverbs, chapter 16. When I get to chapter 16, I'm going to begin at verse 27. Proverbs 16, verse 27 says this: an ungodly man diggeth up evil, and in his lips there is as a burning fire. That's it. Mere words can start a war, can start fights. Some of the most vicious fights a couple can have is with their words, because those wounds stay with you. I know there's a husband out there that said something to their wife, not too kind, not too kind. And 15 years later, she still remembers. That's how deep the cut is. That's how deep those words are. An ungodly man diggeth up evil, and in his lips there is as a burning fire. But that knife cuts both ways. There's plenty of times where a wife has said something to the husband that dishonors him, and he'll never forget it. We got to watch our words. Verse 28, a froward man soweth strife, and a whisperer separated chief friends. A whisperer, a rumor mom. Hey, did you hear what she said? Did you hear what he said? You know what happened over there? You know what he did, she did? Everybody likes to juicy dirt. Everyone likes, but it causes problems. And you know what's funny? We all know that it causes problems, rumors and gossip and all that, but we still participate in it. You know, the world as a whole still participate in it. I mean, I know there's some people who have enough self-control, enough self-discipline to walk away from it. But by and large, we kind of like all this juicy this, juicy that. But a froward man soweth strife, and a whisperer separates chief friends, because just a little bit of information, a little bit of gossip, a little bit of misunderstanding, anything, and boom, we're not friends anymore. I heard you said this about me. I know it's happened to even some of you guys who are watching. Go to chapter 11 in the book of Proverbs. Chapter 11. chapter 11. Proverbs chapter 11. And I will look at verse 9. Proverbs 11 verse 9 goes like this. A hypocrite with his mouth destroyed his neighbor, but through knowledge shall the just be delivered. A hypocrite with his mouth. See, the Bible has a lot to say about what we're saying with our words, what we're doing with our words. Again, we're talking about vows and oaths and swearing. Watching our mouth. Watch what we say. Because we get a little careless with our words. Drop down to 13. A talebearer revealeth secrets, but he that is of a faithful spirit concealeth the matter. If something is not going to be of use, if something is not going to edify and build up, if it's only going to destroy, why are you saying it? Then don't say it. A person, but he that is of a faithful spirit concealeth the matter. If it's only going to do harm, keep your mouth closed. If no good will come of it, keep your mouth closed. That's what I mean. A talebearer revealeth secrets. Oh, we should keep secrets. If it's going to do more bad, more evil than good, keep your mouth closed. If you telling a secret is only going to destroy, he that is of a faithful spirit concealeth the matter. Now, again, and we'll go back to Proverbs pretty soon here, but we got one more spot, Proverbs at chapter 14. Chapter 14. At the very least, this lesson is easy to follow. Chapter 14, and let's get verse 25. A true witness delivered souls, but a deceitful witness speaketh lies. Look at the contrast. Look at the contrast how the Bible speaks of it. A true witness delivereth souls, but a deceitful witness speaketh lies. That's how it works, brothers and sisters. It's about being prudent with your mind. It's about wisdom with what we're saying. Something, or should I not? That's where wisdom comes in. Let me go to verse 23. It says, in all labor there is profit, but the talk of the lips tended only to penury. Low estate. Penury is like a all labor there's in all labor there's to see if you do something. Remember when I was talking about the businesses earlier and stuff like that? If you do something, in all labor there's profit, but the talk of the lips tended only to penury or poverty or lack. So you got to be about something. Okay, so we got to get pen and paper and get going. Now let's go to 1 Timothy. Let's go on over to the New Testament, the Brit Hadashah, as it were. 1 Timothy, and I want to get 1 Timothy chapter 5. First Timothy 5. 1 Timothy chapter 5. I'm going to begin at verse 11. Okay, let's look at this real quick. But the younger widows refuse, for when they have begun, cast off their first faith. And withal, they learn to be idle, wandering about from house to house. And not only idle, but tattlers also, and busybodies, speaking things which they ought not. I will therefore that the young women marry, okay, bear children, guide the house, give none occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully, for some are already turned aside after Satan. Look at that. Look at the household, brothers and sisters. Look at that. Look at what it's saying here. Verse. Okay? But the younger widows refuse. Okay, refuse them. Why? For when they have begun to wax Christ, they will marry. So they're already running around, married, having them. They have cast off their first faith. Oh, they learn to be idle from house to house. Idle, so and busy by everyone's business. Okay, speaking things which they are not. And I will therefore that the younger women marry, their children, guide the house, give none occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully, for some are already turned aside after Satan. I hope we got that. Let's go to 1 Thessalonians. Go back 2 books. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. Okay, 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. And with that, I'll pick it up at verse 9 through 11. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 9. But as touching brotherly love, you need not that I write unto you, for ye yourselves are taught of God to love one another. 10. And indeed, ye do it toward all the brethren which are in more and more. To be quiet. That's what we need to do. Verse 12. That ye may walk honestly towards them that are without, and that ye may have lack of nothing. Basically, mind your own business. We mind our own business. Very well put there. That's all we have to do. Let's go right back to Proverbs 17. Proverbs 17. Following along with me. Got a little bit more to go. Proverbs 17, and I will pick it up at verse 7. Proverbs 17, verse 27. I'll read the last 2 verses. It says this: He that has knowledge spareth his words. Understanding is of an excellent spirit. Even a fool, when he holdeth his peace, is counted wise. And he that shutteth his lips is esteemed a man of understanding. Did we get that? Did we get that? He that has knowledge spareth his words. Okay? He spares his words. And a man of understanding is of an excellent spirit. There's wisdom in there. There's wisdom bubbling in there because he is quiet about it. Carefully. Having enough wisdom to know when to speak and when not to speak. And then we read verse 28. Even a fool, when he holdeth his peace, meaning he keeps his mouth shut, is counted wise. So just being quiet. People might think you're wise. Lip is a much. Or are you the type to jump up at any under how much you know? Is that what you're all about? Something we have to think about. Something we have to think about. We're Proverbs 13. We're going to go to James 1. Let's go back to the book of James, chapter 1. And I will read it at verse. And this advice, James 1 and verse 19. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, to hear slow to wrath, and worketh not the righteousness of God. Lay apart all filthiness and superfluity of naughtiness, and receive with meekness the engrafted word, which is able to save your souls. 22. Word and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves, because that's what we have to do. That's how we have to do it. Ultimately, deal with this word. We need to be walking it out instead of spending more time judging people to make sure to see if they're doing it the way you understand it. I tell people all the time, you know, hey, if I teach the dietary law, guess what? I'm not going to your refrigerator and checking to see if you got bacon in there. You. But it said, be ye doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. For if any of the word and not a doer, he is like unto a man beholding his natural face in glass. Okay, for he beholdeth himself and goeth his way, and straightway forget what manner of man he was. So you go and look, you go and understand what this lesson is all about, the swearing, how we use our word, the power of life and death are in the tongue. About it, and you go running right out and speak falsely against your neighbor. And ultimately, we're supposed to love one another. We don't know each other's level of understanding. So we have to be patient, just like our Messiah with us. So we need to be patient with one another and quit condemning one another, quit being too swift to judge one another. So he said in verse 19 again, wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. That's the attitude that we should have. And all you have to do is go in your bathroom mirror and see if you are measuring up. That's all you have to do. And be more concerned with that. Be more concerned if you are doing it, rather than speaking against your brother too swiftly. Psalm 12. Go to Psalm 12. Book of Psalm 12. Chapter 12. And let me read the first 5 verses here. Psalm 12. First 5 verses. Help, Lord, for the godly man ceases, for the faithful fail from among the children of men. They speak vanity, every one with his neighbor. With flattering lips and with a double heart do they speak. All flattering lips, and a tongue that speaketh proud things. Who have said, with our tongue will we prevail? Our lips are our own. Who is the Lord over us? For the oppression of the poor, for the sign of the needy. Now will I arise, says the Lord. I will set him in safety from him that puffeth at him. So the Lord is going to go ahead and have vengeance for those who run off at the mouth and say proud things and, you know, there is no God, or if God is this and that, then, you know, see, these people are running off at the mouth. I have someone incessantly always saying, hey man, you know, the Bible's fake, the Bible's not real, don't even worry about it. We got divinity in our heart, you don't got to do anything. If the Bible is to be believed, don't worry about running off at the mouth. You hear that of other faith, you know, people of other faith run off at the mouth. You have people who run down the Bible, who run down God, who run down Christ, who just running off at the mouth, running off at the mouth. And according to scripture, they're going to have to pay. Now, don't get me wrong. I know how to debate, okay? I don't debate. I wouldn't debate an atheist and say, hey, the Bible says this, the Bible says that. Well, I don't believe it anyway. But I'm talking to the believers. To the believers. Believers that have a lot at them about the running off at the mouth. They're speaking vain things. They're speaking ungodly things against you, your faith, your Messiah, your God, your Bible. They're saying a lot of different things. But let's see what it said. Verse 3 said, the Lord shall cut off all flattering lips, the tongue that speaketh proud things, who have said, with our tongue will we prevail. Okay, because they'll be like, well, if the Lord is, then why don't, see, a lot of people, they think they got you. For instance, they may say, well, if God is real, then why don't he give an amputee his leg back or his arm back or something? Speaking proud things. I mean, I don't read anywhere where the Bible says that he promised to give people their limbs back, at least not in this side of reality. But still, they think they got you. They're speaking proud things. So if the Bible is to be believed, they're going to have to give an account for all the idle words that they speak. I'm addressing this to believers. So if you're a believer out there and you speak to someone of a different faith or an atheist or something like that, don't say, oh, well, the Bible says, a fool says in his heart there is no God or whatever. That doesn't work with someone who don't believe your Bible or your God. So I'm just telling you now, if the Bible is true, they have someone to answer to. Now, let's deal with some vows a little bit. Go to the Numbers. Go to Numbers. Let's put a little focus on vows, and then we will close out. Go to the book of Numbers 30. And we'll start at verse 1. Numbers 30. Numbers 30. Numbers 30. I'm going to pick it up at verse 1. Okay? Let's take a look at this. Let's read this story here. And Moses spake unto the heads of the tribes concerning the children of Israel, saying, this is the thing which the Lord has commanded. If a man vow a vow unto the Lord, or swear an oath to bind his soul with a bond, and he promised, oh, I swear to God, so to speak, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceeded out of his mouth. Do we get that? Are we understanding that? Are we hearing that? Okay, if a man vow unto the Lord, or swear an oath to bind his soul, his life, with a bond, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceeded out of his mouth. If a woman also vow a vow unto the Lord, and bind herself by a bond, being in her father's house, in her youth, her vow. Now, I want you to understand that the authority and the protocol, what the Lord has put forth. Okay, look at this. In verse 3. If a woman also vow a vow unto the Lord, and bind herself in her father's house in her youth, okay, a young teenage woman, her father hears her vow, and her bond wherewith she has bound her soul, and her father shall, okay, then all her vows shall stand, and every bond wherewith she hath bound her soul shall stand. Oh Lord, I promise. Okay, if you have a teenage, daughter or something, young woman, whatever, live in the house with you, and she goes, hey, you know what, if my dad or my mom buys me this iPad or gets me this car or whatever it is that they may want, then I will do this for you. I promise I will do this, Lord. I will give this up, or I'll start doing this, whatever it may be, or whatever. Okay, if the father knows about it, and he already thinking, okay, my daughter's not gonna keep her word on that, she's not gonna do that, then yeah, he can cancel that vow out. Or if he doesn't say anything, he knows about it, he doesn't say anything, he doesn't pray about it, doesn't entreat the Lord or nothing like that, then he said, middle of 4, and every bond wherewith she has bound her soul shall stand. But verse 5, but if her father disallow her in the day that he heareth, or the day that he heard it, not any of her vows or of her bonds wherewith she has shall stand, and the Lord shall forgive her, because her father disallowed her. Do we understand the power and the protocol? Do we see this? Okay, so if the young woman make a vow, the father hears about it, he doesn't think that she can hold up her end of the deal, he can disallow it. Or if he thinks it's fine, he doesn't say anything, then it stands. She needs to keep her word. Verse 6, and if she had at all a husband when she vowed, or uttered aught out of her lips, wherewith she bound her soul, 7, and her husband heard it, and he held his peace at her in the day that he heard it, then her vow shall stand, and her bonds wherewith she bound her soul shall stand. Verse 8, but if her husband disallow her on the day that he heard it, then he shall make her vow which she vowed, and that which she uttered with her lips, wherewith she bound her soul, of none effect, and the Lord shall forgive her. Do we understand what just happened? Either with her father, he can let it go, or he can disallow it. Or her husband, he can let it go, or he can disallow it. Did we get that? Okay. Verse 9. But every vow of a widow and of her that is divorced, wherewith they gave bound their souls, shall stand against her. So if you're divorced or you're a widow, it's going to stand. And if she vowed in her husband's house, or bound her soul by a bond with an oath, her husband heard it, and he held his peace at her, and disallowed her not, then all her vows shall stand, and every bond wherewith she bound her soul shall stand. But if her husband has utterly made them void on the day he heard them, okay, not the day she made it, but the day he found out, on the day that he heard them, then whatsoever proceeded out of her lips concerning her vows, or concerning the bond of her soul, shall not stand. Her husband has made them void, and the Lord shall forgive her. Are we getting at this? It's powerful. I hope we get an understanding of this. Now, every vow and every binding oath to afflict the soul, her husband may establish it, and her husband may make it void. 14. But if her husband altogether hold his peace, he doesn't say anything, at her from day to day, then he established all her vows and all her bonds which are upon her. He confirmed them, because he held his peace at her in the day that he heard them. But if he shall anyways make them void after that he had heard them, then he shall bear her iniquity. Okay, so now it's on the husband. But if he shall anyways make them void after that he had heard them, then he shall. So he can't do it later on. He can't say, oh, well, if he hears about it in that day, okay, it's Monday, he heard, or she told her husband, hey, you know, I promise the Lord I will do this, I will do that. Okay. And then he holds his peace, and then 6 months later, like, oh, I don't think you're going to be able to keep your word to the Lord or whatever. Okay, I disallow that. No, it's too late for that. You need to make a determination the day you heard it. Okay, so if we go 14 one more time, and then we move on. But if her husband altogether hold his peace at her from day to day, then he established all her vows and all her bonds which are upon her. He confirmed them, because he held his peace at her in the day that he heard them. It's just like Samuel's mother, when she was barren, and she said, hey, you give me a son, I'll dedicate the son to you, Lord, to serve you, and all that. And that's how you got Samuel. Okay, but she kept her word. But that's what I'm talking about. Okay, you give me a child, I'm gonna dedicate him to you. But you got to keep your word. Okay. Then he established all her vows and all her bonds which are upon her. He confirmed them, because he held his peace at her in the day that he heard them. Okay, so that's what we have to understand. So words, vows, bonds, oaths, they mean something to the Lord, right? They mean something. They mean something. So go to Ecclesiastes. No, we read that one already. So go to Proverbs 6. I did that one already, so I want to go to Proverbs 6. Proverbs 6. Okay. Proverbs 6. Let me read verse 1. Proverbs 6, verse 1. My son, if thou be surety for thy friend, if thou hast stricken thy hand with the stranger, thou art snared with the words of thy mouth. thou art taken with the words of thy mouth. I mean, you vouch for him. You putting in a good word, or today sometimes it's like if we co-sign or something for a friend or a family member or something like that. Do this now, my son, deliver thyself. When thou art come into the land of thy friend, go humble thyself and make sure thy friend. Okay, give not sleep to thine eyes, nor slumber to thy eyelids. Deliver thyself as a roe from the hand of the hunter, and as a bird from the hand of the fowler. Okay, you binding yourself. You're promising. Okay, if my friend doesn't make good on this deal or whatever, then I'm gonna make good. Well, you don't want to do that, because you are binding yourself to that. You are, in today's terms, you're co-signing. Your friend go buys a car, and then you're going to co-sign and say, well, if he doesn't make the payment, he or she doesn't make the payment, then I'll make the payment. These scriptures are saying, get out of that. You don't want to do that. You got to get out of that deal. Not a good idea. Okay, so Proverbs, you're still in Proverbs. Let's go to chapter Proverbs chapter 22 and verse 25. Proverbs 22 and 25 says this: lest thou learn his ways and get a snare to thy soul. Lest thou learn his ways and get a snare unto thy soul. Be not thou one of them that strike hands, or of them that are sureties for death. Okay, in verse 26. Sureties for death. You're giving your word, and you become indebted. That's what we're talking about here. You will become indebted there, because it'll become a snare into your soul. Now you're on the hook for the deal. Don't give your word. And when you sign on the dotted line, by the way, it's like giving your word. You're promising. So if thou hast nothing to pay, why should he take away thy bed from under thee? Okay, because you're on the hook. You're on the hook. You give your word, you give your signature, you're on the hook. Don't want to do that. Psalm. Go back one book, Psalm 116, while we start to wrap it up here. Psalm 116. And let's read verse 14. Now look at what it says here, 116 and 14. It says, I will pay my vows unto the Lord now in the presence of all his people. Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints. O Lord, truly I am thy servant, I am thy servant, and the son of thy handmaid. Thou hast loosed my bonds. I will offer to thee the sacrifices of thanksgiving, and I will call upon the name of the Lord. 18, I will pay my vows unto the Lord now in the presence of his people. Do we understand what's going on here? Keep your word. You want your word to be golden. That's what you want. That's the kind of character you want to build. You want your word to be golden. So when people who know you and they said, hey, you give your word, they're pretty much counting on it. They're pretty much like, yeah, he's gonna fulfill his promise or die trying. Something big has to happen for sister so-and-so not to keep her word. Something is wrong. It's unlike brother so-and-so not to keep his word. That's the kind of character you're trying to build. That's the kind of benefit of the doubt you are trying to establish. Keep your word, your vows. Let's look at last two places. Let's look at Deuteronomy 23. Let's look at Deuteronomy 23. And when we get there, we're going to start at verse 21. Okay, talk about our vows, talk about our words. Deuteronomy 23, 21, 3. 21. When thou shalt vow a vow unto the Lord thy God, thou shalt not slack to pay it, for the Lord thy God will surely require it of thee, and it would be sin in thee. But if thou shalt forbear to vow, it shall be no sin in thee. So if you don't promise, it's no sin. Making a bunch of promises and breaking them, that is a sin. Are we getting that? Don't want to do that. Verse 23. That which is gone out of thy lips, thou shalt keep and perform, even a freewill offering, according as thou hast vowed unto the Lord thy God, which thou hast promised with thy mouth. Even a freewill offering. Oh God, I promise I'm going to do this, or I'm going to dedicate this or that. You got to do it. Then you got to do it. Oh Lord, I'm going to volunteer over at hospice and read books and talk to them and stuff like that. You know, I'm going to do that once a month. Then you need to do it. Or and I read these things twice because I want it to sink in. I want us all to get the gravity of the situation. That's why I do it. We really have to understand this. Is your word going to mean something? A boss, employee, or whatever, you're a parent. Do you make idle promises to your kids and not keep it? Careful when you make promises to your kids. And when you do make promises to your kids, do you keep it? And that's important. You know why? Because you want your kids to develop that same type of character. The same way. Hey, if I give my word, I'm going to do it. Or I'm going to do everything I can to try to do it. It's no shame in saying, I can't make that promise. No shame at all. It's actually wisdom. If you don't think you can make it, just say, I can't make that promise. I can't promise that. Let's go to our last place, which is Matthew 5. We're going to keep it nice and simple. We're going to end with Matthew 5 and keep it nice and simple. Watch this. Keep it nice and simple, easy to understand. Anybody can get it. Watch this. Matthew 5 and verse 33. Our last place. Watch this. Matthew 5 and 33, it says this. Again, ye have heard been said by them of old time, thou shalt not forswear thyself, but shalt perform unto the Lord thy oaths. Didn't we read that? If you say you're going to do it, you got to do it, right? Okay. 34. But I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Neither shalt thou swear by thy head, because thou canst make one hair white or black. But let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. For whatsoever is more than these cometh of evil, because you could to evil or sin of me and swearing by this and swearing by that. Watch your words, your promises. Don't speak. Be careful. We have to give for every idle speak. Slow to speak. Swift to hear. Slow to speak. Two ears, one mouth. Let's use them in that proportion. With that, I hope all of you have been edified in this lesson. Until next time, we're going to see you next Shabbat. Search the scriptures. All things. Noon. Shabbat. God bless you.